Hey guys, got the new JDM poppers. I've used JDM kits before in the past, and I found them reliable. Um, they're off of Amazon. The instructions are weak, but I mean I've installed them. But I don't know. I get some humor out of the 5-step instructions, and grab a screw. Are they all the same size? Grab a ferrule. What if you didn't know what a ferrule was? They should have pictures. Anyway, so I'm getting into looking at the passenger door. Originally, I was going to go down in that area, identify the bottom of my glass plus 1 inch, um, and came to the conclusion that even pulled one cable down. So excited, but I'm hitting the outside of the door before I get flush with the surface of the interior side of the door. And I don't want to, try to blend in some bodywork on the exterior side of the door. It'd just fall out if I opened it. Anyway, so what I've opted to do is kind of stay consistent with this. I had to bump this out to accommodate the latch, and the reason I had to bump it out is because these doors are so thin. This here, before this step, that's the window channel, the window run. You can see here as it works its way down into the cavity, and that window run is how I identified that less the 3 inches on the chop. So, and that correlates, that's 2 inches from the actual, as a drop from there to there, 2 inches, because I added an inch here for the hardware to mount the glass into, which just a safety zone at this point. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into this surface here and try to stay as close to this outside surface as possible. I have the room, and looking at the vehicle, I have the room to do something decorative in the door panel to kind of come out with it, and I could integrate in the interior latch, which will be a switch, but it'll look like a latch, but it'll be a switch to activate this. I'm not going to linkage more than likely not going to run a linkage, even though I have the opportunity to, but up for that. Why? I'll just run it all on electric. So what I'm going to do is I got to go into this surface, but this mounting hardware isn't conducive, right? If I mount it here, it goes too far in, and if I mount it here, it's 2.5 inches out. That's definitely not going to work. Plus the alignment is junk with this. I'll grab this arm, which is 1/4 of an inch from this surface, so I'm going to try to get this in as close to 1/4 of an inch as I can. I got a 3/4 inch opportunity before I go inside of this surface, so I'm going to draw up a new mounting bracket, and I'll flush mount it somewhere in here, maybe relatively close, just so that I can get enough room for a linkage and some schlop to allow the plunger to pull back 1/8 of an inch or so before it fully retracts, so that it activates the door properly. 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch. You need to get some momentum on that plunger. And so I am going to draft up something to put somewhere in this neighborhood on the door, and blow it out on the plasma cutter, and see what the results are. I'll bring you through it. So let's go. Okay, you can see now basically what I'm trying to accomplish here. I got 4 mounting holes. I'm relieved for the cylinder. I cut enough space in here so that when the plasma goes in, it goes in and turns around. It's not just a slot. It leaves the outside perimeter. My bend line is right here, and it's going to then, on the bend line, it's going to, let's go like this, horizontal dimension from here to here. Textite, I don't know, 1 inch. Okay, good enough. Yeah, 1/4 of an inch. 1/4 of an inch. So the diameter of this screw here is 380 thousandths, you know, a little bigger than 3/8. So you 400 thousandths. So half that distance is 200. So the bend's going to be just a little below the head of the screw, which is good. I mean, that's the inside of the bend, because this will bend this side here. This will bend up. Then this will slide into that pocket, and there's enough distance here for the plunger to not, you know, bump, not disable it from coming fully retracted back in, or extended back in. So now I'll just blow out one as a tester. And bending this, for me, this is 10 gauge, 120 thousandths, which isn't a big deal, but I'm going to have to bend this by hand over a straight edge, because I don't have, I have pocket piece dies on the top, but I don't have bottom piece dies. And so I could bend it right here, but I'm going to force the rest of this through the bottom die of the brake. So that won't work. Anyway, I'm retaining it with 4. This used 4. Those are, they're 1/4 inch equivalents. What is that? 6 millimeter bolts. And remember, this is mounting on the surface, so I still got 3/4 of the back. I'm just sending this guy back as far as I can at 2 inches. At 1/4 of an inch there. I'm sending it back from that center line 3/4. I'm sending the solenoid 3/4 of an inch into the body. And in looking at this, it'll mount actually like this, because my wiring will then, you know, this is the center line. My wiring will be inside the door, on that panel. If I want to put, it'll be inside the interior, pardon me. If I want it inside the door, I can do that too. Either way, just flip it over. So that all works. And this isn't restricted at all from rotation. So it gives me those options. This is all on the center line. So it looks like I'll be able to achieve something here. So we'll go blow one out and see what happens, huh? All right, let's have a look, see at how this is going to work. We'll flick the light on, get the vent fan on. It's a doggone range hood over my table. I'm about out of water. It's running low, but the piece is going to be hot. Got it up here. We're going to do a dry run. Let's see here. There, we're communicating. Just going to click the start button. Now it's cutting that interior. It's pretending to cut that interior shape right now. Wanted that out of there first. Then come back and start putting the holes in it. There's the big hole for the bent area. There was one screw hole for the mount and one for the mount to the door. There we go. Now let's make sure we hit the perimeter. or don't go off the edge of the sheet. Oh, it's good. Nice, beautiful sheet utilization. All right, let's fire it up. All right, engage. Okay, there we have it. She's sitting on the rails there still, so it's not going to drop out. So, and you saw that. Let me power off the table. I can move this out of the way then. So I'll have to drill that out. And it fires and sometimes does that. And what's going to happen is I'll have to clean that up and go from there. Okay, all right. Cleaned out that hole, took a flapper and knocked it off. And I've opted to go with 12 gauge rather than 10 gauge. 10 gauge is 120 thou. This is 116 and a half in this case. And this is 80. This might be 14 gauge. Shit. I might have to blow another one out, but this will work as a tester anyway. Its intentions were only a tester. It was sitting on the table. I think you're right. I think it is 14 gauge. I think I'm right. So anyway, I block it to the bottom of my cut marks, and now I need to get something to push it over for me. Wonder if I can just push it gentle here. Will this fit? Yes. At this point, I can push it gentle. The reason for going to a lighter gauge is that I'm pulling on in this case, I'm pulling over the angle, right? So there's a moment or there's a stress right here on this etch. In this case, I'm pulling right just a quarter of an inch above the center line, and clearly that's going to induce a lot less stress across that piece. I've got to get a piece of metal here. I can get a good swing on. I just want to flatten these out here. There we go. Okay, so dimensionally, and you can see this is the first one. This is one I just cut. Okay. Got some vice marks in it now. So now there will be an opening in the door that's 2 inches. Just set the vise to that. This guy will go in, feed through there, and bolt onto there. And I have not hit the plunger. I'll be dipped. Oh, it's just right there. It'll screw together right there. And my holes, trying to get you, make sure you're in the camera. There, my holes are a little oversized, so when I do go to it's plasma, right? If I'm a little higher off the table, the holes get a little big. I don't think those are going to be mission critical, but I can downsize them just a little bit to get them in tighter. And again, I can put the wiring now on the interior side of the panel. The doors are the motor is going to protrude Inside, well, of course, as spec. Where am I at here? All right. 3/4 of an inch. So I make it. I'm a little down, less than 3/4 of an inch. Should really bolt it together, but just right at 3/4 of an inch. So I will clear the glass. I'm standing up. Then it should be what, 3/4 of an inch and a quarter to the outside. Of course, it's 1.25 inches. It's a 2-inch cylinder, for crying out loud. And I'm going to pop you out of here. Let's see here. I always seem to hit the phone and have to retake the video. So now it's just a matter of finding where. Let's see if I can pull this out of there. So I'll probably get relatively close at this point, just enough to get a linkage in. Okay, that'll mount on the surface of the door. Oh, it's going to be up about 1/2 inch under there. I'll probably have to put it at a bit of an angle, and it will stick. It'll protrude. Well, if I get straight on, it's hard to sight it properly, but it'll protrude 3/4, 1/2 inch, 1.25 inches, 3/4. So when I make this cover piece, this will be a hole right in the cover for the to interface with the latch. So that'll be notched out for clearance to latch. Yeah, and then I can actually build out to here, 1.25 inches off the surface, or whatever. It'll be 1.5 inches off the surface when all is said and done. And I've got probably, well, that's 3/4. That's where this jam is in the post is in that far. So this I'll probably copy something across a band across there or something when I do the interior. But yeah, see it on that side. But I think we're making progress. I think it's going to be cool. Cool as all get out. I think I can blow out 4 after a few minor adjustments. Then we'll move on to assembly. Well, isn't that special? Anyway, so I blew all 4 of them out. I did reduce the size of the holes for the screws. Screws are nice and close, right in there, right in that at the inside bend radius. Got a little, a little overbend or whatever. All that I can tweak all that later. But you could, and I'm using 12 gauge now, thicker material. So by comparison, it's pretty hard to tell. But we're only looking at 20, 30 thousandths depending on who you buy from. Anyway, and again, my justification is I'm pulling right in the center. I don't have a moment or a bending lever, that's as long as that is, 1.5 inches long, more than 1 inch, 1.75 inches long, or 1.5 inches long. That was right. Okay. Anyway, so now I got all 4 of them up. I got all 4 of them mounted, and it's about 45 minutes to quitting time, so I can do a little bit of mock-up, but that's about it. So we'll jump back into this tomorrow and show you the progress. I got it mounted in, cut the hole out, and basically used rib nuts. I don't want to fish a washer or a nut in behind there, hold it with your fingers, and you know, there's no space here. You can't get in there. So the rib nut, of course, doesn't protrude 3/4 of an inch. The bolts that I have, or that I'm using, are, you know, 1.5 inches long, but you can see the wiring. You know, I'll change those bolts out. So we have clearance for the window. That's going to work. The bolts, I don't want them to protrude past the motor. And again, I don't have the window channel on that side, but you can see the formed edge of the door in there. I don't know if I have a, and I do. So you can see the top right there, that window channel goes all the way down there, and I do clear it. The motor clears it by a mile. So now the question is, you know, I can obviously weld up this hole and all that. So now I want to shut the door, play around with it. This will actuate that linkage there. The window trim will fit on. It comes down 1/2 inch, and then of course I'm going to have a ledge come out or something of that nature. And then the door handle will be somewhere up in here. You know, so this will curve around, relieve out for the door handle. As this band kind of, maybe this will just drift to 0, maybe it'll drift to a armrest, you know, I don't know. So at this point I'm gonna shut the door and maybe draw on it or something to look at where things could be. Okay, let's review. So I shut the door, I climbed in, I looked around, I did a whole bunch of things to try to identify with the best possible location for this. And you know, because it's a protrusion, and this is a protrusion, I want to tie it in somehow. So the options are relatively limited, but I mean, I can go out this way, you know, anywhere. I can go straight down, but I have to be on the surface. Let me step back. Okay, but I can go on the surface. If I put it down here, you know, maybe even a little closer, because my linkage would still, it could be behind this. I could have a hole down here and actuate it there. The issue that I have there is when it's closed, it clears the seat and that, but the ability to get back in, you know, and adjust the seat, those kinds of things will become difficult because you'd be encroaching into this area. There is room here. It would be tight. It would be tight in certain seating positions to recline the seat and do those kinds of things, both sides. So I don't want to create that, you know, it's an ergonomic issue. You don't move the seats all the time, and especially in a hot rod, it doesn't get driven all the time. But the issue is ergonomics, you know. Does the design, form and function, you know, accentuate the art of what you're trying to accomplish? This here area, because we're, you know, these bodies, they narrow, you know, was one of the critical issues in placing the seats and narrowing the seats, is you want to be able the seat to go as far forward as possible. But because they narrow, the space as you go forward gets narrower, and with this as far back as it is, the width has plenty of opportunity. There's no interference with your shoulders or anything like that, your arm, so on and so forth. So coming into here is fine, actually. So the issue then becomes, how do you tie all this in? Because this eventually has to drift into the dash. You got to be able to operate your window. I mean, it's somehow in here, and you got to be able to open the door. So what I've done is I've just kind of come up with a concept or an idea, and somewhere in here in this area, again, I'm 1/2 inch below, that's this line right here. And that's where this trim fits on. Right, where is it now? Which way am I going? You got the window stop on the top. Okay, that goes in flush with the door. It does have noteworthy a 1/4 inch gap because that's where the door card, the original door card went on. So I'm just gonna kind of set it there. And that's on that line that I drew right under there. Okay. So immediately following this, you know, maybe an 1/8 of an inch gap so it can be upholstered, this would come out. I drift down and arrange some sort of an ergonomic, again, you know, user-friendly radius coming back up, and tie the bottom of this and this straight across into the bottom of the dash. Okay, so this will drift back to near zero, you know, probably somewhere flush with the inner jamb, which is relatively close to the, this is just ever so slightly behind this. So this would taper into zero, but it would have to widen out in this area. I'd have a hand pocket in here with a switch in the hand pocket. This is, again, just a concept. Let me get my hand, the correct hand in there, to actuate the door. But you'd be your door pull, and you would actuate the door and you push. Somewhere in here, maybe that's a little farther down here. And then right up in that neighborhood as this is out, because you got to have the room for the relief. As this is out, I fit in the door, the window switch. Of course, that brings into consideration, am I going to have 4 window switches on the driver's side? You know, I don't know. Probably not. Probably not. It's, you know, 3.5 feet away, I can open this window. I can certainly, you know. Anyway, so I'm thinking that I can make this work better than this. Widening this out is going to cause an ergonomic issue. This is not an interruption in resting your arm or interfering with your arm, those kinds of things. As this comes out, it's not going to come out very far, right? You know, it's going to be beyond the, door trim. It's not going to be huge, but I do want to kind of shelf it. You know, I want it to come out and turn maybe a 1 inch, 1.5 inch radius, and then down, and have that radius flow in all the way down here. But I need enough space so that it doesn't have to bump out for the handle, so that you can get your hand in there and open and shut the door. So, and then just enough space for a nice looking window switch. So that's the location. That design, of course, needs to kind of continue to manifest, but that's an ideal location. This location, it makes it just too close to the seat to get your hand down in there. So we're going to forge ahead with that. Okay, so kind of back to basics here now. I validated that assembly works. I played with the cable holding one end, and you know, it unlatches just fine. They are plenty strong. At 85 pounds, they're going to open these little doors, no problem at all. So I tested out of stock a spring for the connection, and I think I'm going to go with that. They're stiff springs, but at the end of the story, then I'm allowing some tolerance in it, and it works. It works really well. So if I find that after I get the door seals in and it's you know, the pressure's just too great, then I'll move to a linkage. I really doubt it with these though. So basically what I did is I measured the distance on the mounted surface to each of these 3 holes. and I came up with a low of 3 1/4 and a high of 3 3/4. So I have there's a half inch between these three holes, meaning they're a quarter. So 3 1/4, 3 1/2, 3 3/4. The distance from here to the door latch, to the bear claw door latch. I found some 3 5/8. I didn't want to exceed a half inch in diameter to keep everything close and tight. And that'll give me the option to use these holes. There is also some adjustment in these. On this one, I took him apart. If you've ever heard a door popper go, there, once the door is all, the inside card is on and the sound deadener's on the interior of the outer skin, they quiet down a bit. They just a clunk. But I took this guy here apart and I put an O-ring on the backside. It's just where the plunger goes forward, it's just a 10 millimeter nut that bottoms, and it is adjustable, so I can adjust the depth a little bit. This throw is, a lot for my door, but I'm not too worried about that. And then on the top side, I put an O-ring also, so it hits the O-ring, hits rubber before it dead ends. And I'm going to experiment with that. I tried it. It is a deader tone, but I don't know that it makes that much difference, and it might introduce problems. So I'll compare down the road with that. As I'm get to this phase of assembly, I'll compare. So right now, I'm just breaking it down to process, because this can be daunting to do one door, then do the next door, then do the next door. And you don't want a lot of variation in a design if you've considered everything and you've got your design settled. Additionally, these are the door handles. So we'll go back, the plugins for the door handles. Two-way, it's just a normally open or normally closed opportunity on a switch with 2 wires operating an LED. And so that configuration is like that. Similarly, there will be a switch more mechanical on the inside, more mechanical looking on the inside. This one's buried into here, and you just push the switch. It's a momentary switch. So basically what I'm going to do is you have to configure the solenoid to trip it with a relay. And so I will more than likely mount that relay in the door and just run the 2 10-gauge wires, a ground to the chassis on the body side of the door. I'm not going to use the door hinges to ground the door. That's too unreliable. And then my positive wire, of which I'll tie those all together. Every door will have the positive wire opportunity, hot positive wire, of which this switch will activate. Or this switch will then activate the relay and pop the door open. Every door will have a relay in it. Okay, so that main wire will go through the relay. The relay for the high current, the low current will run through both switches in the door. Will activate it. It'll go inside, and then there will be another relay, heavy duty relay, that turns that hot wire on. It's a similar function to this, but turns that hot wire on for all the doors. When that wire is hot, this blue LED will light up, indicating that this on the exterior side, this switch is available, or this door is available to open. But I'm going to light them all up. I'm not going to light 1 or 2 of them up. I'm going to light them all up consecutively with one relay on the inside. Attached to that relay on the inside then will be in our, what do they call it? L43, FL-L43 module. And this module gives me the opportunity to use a key fob. And this has 3 different settings using the dip switch positions. So what I can do is I can walk up to the car, click the key fob, which will start a timer, and it'll turn those lights on for 30 seconds, up to 30 seconds. I can set it lower. I can increase that with another timer, but right now I'm going to go do it with the 30 seconds. So they'll be lit up when you hit that key fob, and the doors will be available to open. Then when you turn the ignition to the on position, it will also keep the doors unlocked. So the opportunity to open the doors with the engine running will not require the key fob. And then lastly, when the vehicle is shifted out of park, it will disable that relay so that all the doors are locked when the vehicle is not in park. So that'll be easy to do, but that might be a little, if you stop to let somebody out, you're gonna have to put it in park. So I'll think that one through a little bit, but that's kind of where my head's at right now. So I'll activate a relay which turns everything on, and each door in and of itself will have its own relay to run the switches. So only the high current ever goes through the motor. And the key fob activated will allow for 30 seconds the doors to be unlocked while the vehicle is shut off, while the ignition is in the off position. So it'll be off accessory. I'll use an off accessory fuse. So then I basically took a piece of paper, did the dirty finger thing around everything on here, the whole locations and the slot, and then I just transferred it to each of the doors. See here, you can see it right there on that door. You can't see behind the seat on that door, but by doing that I just measured from the post over, in this case 4 inches, put my piece of paper on and dirty fingered it, cut it out, identified the location of the holes, and then scratched everything out on all of the doors. So now I'm at the phase where I'll just basically now cut everything out, set in the nuts, set in the 4 nuts on everything, and then I can start the assembly of the door handles and then the poppers, because now I have access, to get in there, and then begin the whole wiring. Because I have this whole cavity down low, I can mount the relay on the interior side, can bring my wiring down for the relay activation, and then however I'm going to, haven't figured that out. I do have some space behind here, but however I'm going to get my positive and negative from each door into the interior, and then I'll chase to the control module, which I think I'm pretty well done going under the dash with anything major. And I'm going to start to consume this space where the amplifier will be, and some of the body control stuff like the doors. So we'll get after it. Okay, so where am I now? I got the pinouts for the switches. So again, they're LEDs along with the normally open and normally closed. So 2 wires run the LEDs, 2 wires run the normally open side of the switch, and of course the power into the switch. This would be the normally closed side. I'm trimming this, clipping off the conductive end and including it into the harness, for the future, and basically just getting it ready to tie out. The relays will be mounted down there. It'll be socketed, and then a wire on the interior side below the window line, the bottom window line, and then I'll chase a wire up for here. I'm going to ground through the door, but bring a ground wire in. And then I got to thinking, my hinge assembly, this is all one piece, metal mounted, screwed, bolted to a plate behind and on the inside. And then there are I can't remember, 4 or 6 bolts attaching this hinge. This hinge is you can disassemble the hinge from the interior side and from the door. So I can grab off of one of those if I have the clearance when it's fully closed, you know, between the cowl and the hinge. Same thing on the back. You know, they're the same, basically the same setup. So I will, so then I'll grab a ground lead for there and tie it to the chassis with each one of them. I'm going to pull in the factory, from the factory harness, the electric window wires, because you know, it's already run to the AC and or to the accessory and power feed on the ignition system. It's already fused at 30 amps, so on and so forth. So I'm going to bring that in as one lead. The second lead then is going to be the power for the switches, and I'm really considering just going mechanical on the interior side, because you start to think about all the modes of operation. I started kind of writing those down. You know, from the outside, you know, at 30 seconds get in, right, you know, but from the inside, you know, you don't want to accidentally hit the door popper, so trans would have to be in park. You'd need a timer for the ignition off. I mean, you don't want to hit the key fob to get out of the car. And then I started thinking, well, there's more events, you know, sitting in the car with the engine off. You know, I just want to avoid remembering to use the key fob, or if somebody else winds up owning the car, to go through the list of steps. You know, it needs to be as common and as generic as possible. So I think I'm just going to go mechanical on the interior. Of course, there's a safety factor involved with that too, that you can always get out. So the windows will operate as they would standard on a car. We'll have a delay for entry into the car. Let me think. I couldn't do it in ignition on. I can do a sequence through that same lead and a relay on the other side, but the key is that I'm only fishing 2 wires into the doors. The doors aren't really capable of any size of speaker unless they come out, and I don't really want to intrude into the interior, so the speakers will likely be in the console where water falls down up in the open area on each side. And on this side, then I've got them jacketed, soldered, heat shrunk, pulled the yellow wire in, and just ran them with some material left over on it, with wire length left over. So now I'll get to mounting, because I got to cross over, and there is an opportunity in this area here to here. There's an area to cross over from the exterior side to the interior side that will be behind the door channel because of the way the metal is formed. So I'll take advantage of that. So that's where I'm at. And I'll finish soldering up these, not soldering, I finished soldering, but I will jacket these and heat shrink them, and then we'll move on to the installation and wiring up of the relays. I know this kind of stuff is boring, so I'm not going to take you through it. You know, twist 2 wires together, solder them, throw some heat shrink on, you know, all that kind of thing. There are tons of videos out there that show you how to wrap the wire and solder, and it's like watching body work, right? It's not that interesting. Okay, a real quick shot. Have it wired. Let's get some light in there. Best I can. Have it wired through, and right there you can see that little piece. I'm holding the light in one hand and the phone in the other, so you can see the top edge of where the door channel goes in. That will go right over the top of that wire for the outside door handle, or the cabling. So I retained it. It comes across the backside, does not come close to coming in contact with that, and it's retained right here. That wire, along with the red motor wire, which I decided I'm going to have access from the inside. You don't want to take the glass out and everything, you know, to take the motor off. or to exchange one of these, repaired or what have you. So that runs down the side and stays close. They're inside the actual ends of the bolts there, which are well inside of the door channel. An interesting thing about this body, you can see the door narrows down, 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 and the window channel. This is the lower section of the stamping, but it's right next to the outside edge. Of course, it's consistent along this edge. The depth is consistent all the way down, which is about an inch in total. So, and I stayed within this, you can see here where the forming is from the inside. I stayed within this 3/4 inch zone all the way down. So the window glass will not touch anything on its way down, or rub or anything. Then I came down to here and retained it again. So it's retained up here. Of course, it's wrapped down here. It's not in the metal. It's not tight or anything like that. There's plenty of slack in there. Don't want it to chafe. And then the original window stop is right there. I can still build upon that, go up 3 inches, I guess is what I chopped out of it. But I'm below my bottom line that I originally made, which is window glass +1. And I'm retaining it there. Now it'll come out, and I will have my relay pack right down in here, easily accessible and unpluggable. So what I'm using in this case is a mountable relay. So that'll mount on the interior side. I'll probably have to mount it over here because I can get a screw head in and stay, because this is formed beneath this surface. This is the surface the door panel goes on. So I'll probably mount it down in here. These will just loop around and plug into the relay. So I'll finish off the harness. The relay is let me back up. The relay is the part that's captured, right? It's mounted style relay. This will plug in. And after all this is tied out, brought to the correct length, tied out onto here, and put together, then this red wire, all of the door wires, or the exterior latch wires, will compose a harness. So on one end, this plug, on the other end, that, and you can see the blue plug, the door plug on there. There's enough material there that you can actually unscrew the door, pull the handle out, and disconnect the plug. You will not have to, here. So it's tied. There, you can see the nut right there. It's tied. You might have to have the window all the way up, but you'll be able to pull that forward. You gotta go out about an inch, right? The length of those screws. Actually, you don't even have to do that. You wouldn't even have to pull past the screws. Pull it out, disconnect the harness, and then you can service that switch or what have you. But in essence, that harness will be an independent piece that will plug and play into any of the doors. So basically, I've been finishing this up and doing it all together. Every door now is complete, waiting for the relay setup, and then I will travel over to my contacts, from the inside of the body. From that point, that'll just be 2 leads. Well, actually, one will be for the power windows, one will be for the relay in this case. So, and that'll more than likely have a 2-pin connector to service, to wire up to the windows and wire over to that. So it turned out pretty good, and I'm pretty happy with the progress so far. Well, guys, I just spent the day, basically 5 o'clock this morning until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I built the stub harness that goes inside the door. You can see a hint of the yellow in there. Goes in, drops down. If you remember right, that line is bottom of the original window channel, somewhere in that neighborhood, that pressed out area on the door. So that goes in, shoots across on the outside side of the of the window, and it just loops around and down, and it'll come in here. Built a strap. That's my hinge. It's about 180-degree round. That at the top is the door stop. It hits that rubber cushion. The ground wire is this barrel and this whole piece. I did some work on this piece. I didn't like how I had to shim that piece, and I didn't like that, so I got in there and cut it. Got it flush with the door. I'll have to sandblast these and powder coat them again, but no big deal. Anyway, that is a commercial heat shrink, and so that wraps around the tube and enters into the door, and it looks something like this. So now that tube, I'll get it all level and stuff later, but it wraps around the tube because this here weld seam comes right to the edge here in the cutout, and that shoots through. See, on the back side of the window channel, focus, and then it'll drop down. You can see the window channel in this door. It'll drop down underneath that. It's just simply sticking out right now, and I did change colors because I don't want red. Red is hot, and I don't want red on the interior side channeling through and to be mistaken for anything else. So I actually labeled the wire reel for which is which. I don't know at this point, but one will power the windows and one will power the opening. So that'll go in. The front doors for the door poppers will go up, run down the top side of that to the back. These will run to the back, and on the back side I'll have a little module with the relay and the key fob receiver, and doing the front doors. But the thing is doing with them on, well, part of the commercial break was I had to pull that door off and do all that. That took a little bit of time. But crawling up under the dash in this case, I got this one drilled, I got that one drilled, but I need to put the straps on and the retainers. So when it comes to paint and I finish it up and I got those all powder coated and the car's in paint and the jambs are all painted, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bond this on the backside. I'll loosen it, bond it on here, so it stays there forever. It's just a band of very thick heat. So doesn't rub. None of them rub. They shouldn't, because everything was made in pairs, right? Dimensionally, it's pretty sound. So they fit down the slots and everything works great. So now you can see where I took the door off. I wanted to not have any problems at all. And I made a shim for the bottom. I stuck under the bottom from the inside. Anyway, that's what I got accomplished today. Oofta mea. But I want to get to the point where I can show you that it's all four are lit up. You can pop any door, key fob, all that. Hopefully tomorrow. Hopefully for you in the next few minutes. Well, I've got the transmitter set up, the 343 transmitter. This is the key fob that comes with it. I have it wired to the relay. And now when you push unlock, it lets the power through the relay. In this case, I've just got a bulb right there, so graciously taped to it. My bench is wood. This is metal. That's wood. But works good. And the cool thing is I got it set to the max, which is 30 seconds. But if I'm walking over to the vehicle and I hit the key, hit this button again, it'll add 30 seconds. It'll start the timer over again. So that's really slick. So if you're having a conversation and the guy's not getting in the car, the other person's not getting in, you're talking to your wife, she's outside the door talking to you, you want her to get in, you can just push that again and add. It maxes out at 30 seconds. I'm going to go with that for now. And we'll just keep on trucking. So now I'll mount this in. I've established a mounting point in I have the location established. Sorry, no light. This bar is part of the internal frame structure of the car, and I drilled and tapped 3 holes down there, and then I'll access, because there'll be more. I still have the amplifier and a bunch of other stuff, but this one's going to go right on the back. I am fully wired. I just got to route this. I'm waiting for some connectors, but everything is routed now. Those are extra wires that I pulled up for the lights, the interior lights, that kind of stuff. And then I've got a aux jack that'll go to 2 RCA connections that will come back to the amp. And that's being driven off of the rear view mirror, which is also a touch screen and Bluetooth compatible with my phone, or I can link it to a radio, whatever. I'm not going to have a radio in the dash. But everything's in, all the doors are done. Now the time to screw that thing in and see if she works on the doors. The one thing that I had is I started with a 40 amp. Just for shiggles, I put a 40 amp relay in, and it wouldn't pull it. And the circuit's only 30 amps. This circuit involves a fuse right there. It's got a cover on it, and a 30 amp relay. It pulls that, and the fuse will be 30 amps, which might be even a little heavy, but it's set up for that right now, and we'll take it from there. I have 4 more ports that I can configure for other things using the other buttons. Obviously I don't need lock, but I could do auto start through a timing event. I could make it crank for a certain amount of time. That's what you can do with this. It doesn't have a tack signal or anything, but I can crank for a certain amount of time, and that might be an opportunity, but we'll see. All right, just finishing up this segment. We saw the door handles. I've got all of these mounted. I got the thing wired in. I got a battery charger going. That's the humming sound right now. I just at 10 amps right now. And there's maybe I should be doing this. There. So right now, I got a positive cable coming off a 40 amp circuit wired to nothing. Okay. There's going to be a junction block here so that I can drive my amplifier and my subwoofer off of a terminal block over here. So the subwoofer will go over there where the battery's sitting. The amplifier will likely have to go over here. I don't think I'm going to have room over there. I'd like to put it over there. But anyway, and then back in here then is the module for the key fob. He's wired in. I've got 3, that blue and those 2 greens. They're just wrapped in tape. Those are other buttons. Right now I've got just the unlock button wired. And I don't like the fact that there's pictures on the button. I actually would have preferred if there was 1, 2, 3, 4. But in any event, and then those chase through on a common, go into wiring each of the doors loop, get everything in. So now when I push the unlock, those light up. Those light up for 30 seconds. I have some work to do. I think I'm driving that amp. I'm at 10 amps. It just unlocked. I'm at 10 amps, so I'll get as close as I can to the circuit. Yeah. And I'm chasing through the wire all the way through, so I'm probably pegging that. Let me see what I have for a setting on there. I can go up to 50 amps. Yeah. Yeah, that's opening way too hard. But so it's a 30 amp circuit. It's a 30 amp circuit, and it's fused on the back side right here. Right there. I can pop that off. I'm not going to pop it off right now. And there's a 30 amp fuse for this circuit. This is a 40, which will drive other things. But, you know, if the boom amp is going and all that, so on and so forth, then I might want to bump this up to 50 or 60. I got 8 gauge going back there, which would be good for about 50. So we'll see. We'll see. If I need to change that out with it for a heavier gauge, I'll change it out for a heavier gauge. But that's how we're rolling right now. And this portion of the project is complete.